off the Korean peninsula, which Pyongyang claims are rehearsals for a U.S.-led invasion. The U.S. says the drills are defensive in nature. Tillerson said prioritizing diplomacy to try to curb North Korea's nuclear ambitions is President Donald Trump's preferred avenue. Despite a statement on Twitter that suggested diplomacy won't work, the president wants to avoid violence, according to Tillerson. He also said the president has made it clear to me that he wants this solved diplomatically. He is not seeking to go to war. Several weeks ago, Tillerson announced from Beijing that he had direct lines of communication with North Korea and was seeking to cool tensions between North Korea and the United States. Shortly after those comments, Trump took to Twitter saying he thought Tillerson was wasting his time trying to negotiate with North Korea. Tensions have ratcheted up between the two nations as North Korea continues to develop and threaten the use of its nuclear weapons and long-range missiles. And Trump has threatened to, quote, totally destroy, end of quote, the isolated nation. Asked if Trump's tweets undermined the diplomatic efforts, Tillerson said the connections between the U.S. and the Chinese leaders were very close and that the Chinese are not confused in any way about the United States policy toward North Korea. As for Trump's tweets themselves, Tillerson said the president made the statements he did to try to motivate action. North Korea renewed their threats to launch missiles into the waters around the U.S. territory of Guam over the weekend in advance of today's U.S.-South Korean drills. The joint naval drills will last for 10 days in the waters off South Korea, according to a U.S. statement, and feature a U.S. aircraft carrier and 2 guided missile destroyers. Over the weekend, North Korea state media KCNA said reckless moves by the United States would force the rogue state to take any and all counteractions.
And Puerto Rico is not out of the woods yet. More than 3 weeks after Hurricane Maria, there are severe health issues arising from the lack of clean water and food. For example, CNN is reporting that Puerto Ricans are drinking water from a hazardous waste site. The Puerto Rican water utility has been distributing water from a well at the Dorado groundwater contamination site, which was listed in 2016 as part of the federal Superfund program for hazardous waste cleanup. In announcing the addition of the Dorado site to the Superfund program, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says the area was polluted with industrial chemicals, which can have serious health impacts, including damage to the liver and increasing the risk of cancer, according to the EPA. It's unclear whether there are public health risks from this particular well. The EPA said it plans to do testing in the area in the next few days. Regional EPA spokesman Elias Rodriguez confirmed the location as part of a Superfund site. The Puerto Rican water utility, however, was unaware that this well site was part of the Superfund program, and they still maintain that the water is fit for public consumption. The well was opened on an emergency basis and is not part of the regular drinking water supply. In 2015, this well in Dorado, which is located near a shopping center, was found by the EPA to be safely within federal standards for PCE and chloroform, 2 industrial chemicals. People waiting in line for the water were unaware of those concerns. They don't have other options for a water source.
The United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, said yesterday on NBC's Meet the Press that the administration's hope is that America can stay with the nuclear Iran deal if Congress takes action to keep it together.
I think right now you're going to see us stay in the deal because what we hope is that we can improve the situation, and that's the goal, to see how we can make it better. And that's the goal. It's not that we're getting out of the deal. We're just trying to make the situation better so that the American people feel safer.
On Friday, President Donald Trump declined to certify that Iran was in compliance in the 2015 agreement and threatened to terminate it if Congress doesn't make it stronger. Haley had been a long-time harsh critic of the agreement and one of the few voices in the Trump administration to encourage the president to declare Iran in violation. Haley added, "What we're trying to say is, look, the agreement was an incentive. The agreement was for you to stop doing certain things. You haven't stopped doing them. So what do we do to make Iran more accountable for what they do?" President Trump will be working very closely with Congress, she said, to try to come up with something that is more proportionate. Haley also cited North North Korea as an example of the kind of situation they're trying to avoid with Iran, saying the whole reason we're looking at the Iran agreement is because of the situation in North Korea. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson yesterday also said the U.S. plans to stay in the agreement. He said the issue with the Iran agreement is it does not achieve the objective. It simply postpones the achievement of that objective. We feel that's one of the weaknesses of the... We're going to work with our European partners and allies to see if we can't address these concerns, which are concerns for all of us. Haley also yesterday didn't specifically deny any tensions with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson during the interview on Meet the Press, but tried to distance herself from it. Last week, a White House official told Politico newspaper that escalating friction between the two appears to be reaching World War III proportions. She said that's just too much drama of the report. I mean, it's really all of the palace intrigue now, isn't it? Haley also added that she feels every member of the National Security Council works hard to put options on the table for the president, and they share the common goal of keeping America safe. But she added, I'm glad to be living in New York for just that reason. I don't want to be near the drama in Washington, nor do I want to be near the gossip. With the winds dying down, fire officials said yesterday they've apparently turned a corner in the devastated California wine country and other parts of the state over the past weekend. Thousands of people got the all clear to return to their burned homes. While the danger from the deadliest, most destructive cluster of blazes in California history is far from over, the smoky sky started to clear in some areas. Napa County Supervisor Bella Ramos said a week ago this started as a nightmare, and the day we dreamed of has arrived. We can now see how bad the tragedy has become. People were being allowed to go back home into areas no longer in harm's way, and the number of those under evacuation orders is down to 75,000 from nearly 100,000 the day before. Fire crews were able to gain ground because the winds that had fanned the flames did not kick up overnight as much as feared. Conditions have drastically changed from just 24 hours ago. There's definitely a very good sign, according to Daniel Berlant, a spokesman for the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, who noted that some of the fires were 50% or more contained. It's probably a sign we've turned a corner on these fires. The blazes were blamed for at least 40 deaths and destroyed 5,700 homes and other structures. The death toll will continue to climb as searchers dig through the ruins for people listed as missing. Hundreds are unaccounted for, though authorities said many of them are probably safe but haven't let other people know yet.
You're listening to America's Morning News, where the nation's news breaks.
America's Morning News. America's Morning News. We'll be right back.
Did you know that 9 countries around the world have already seized their citizens' assets to pay down their country's debt or support their banking system, known as what we call a bail-in? Did you know that bonds, mutual funds, and cash can be easily seized, while certain types of gold